Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, clap your hands, stamp your feet, and slowly rub your privates. It's the Tidy Boys, Tidy 30 podcast.
Right, so the first debate we always have on our podcast is who should do the intro, and it's an ongoing thing. In fact, this is the first podcast of the year, Andy, isn't it?
Is it really?
Yeah, the first of 2025, and you said...
We took a little break, didn't we?
We took Christmas break.
Yep.
But you said if we come back in the new year, the guest has got to be really, really good.
I used the word stellar.
You said, unless they've got at least 35 years DJing history, you don't
I wasn't coming back. So this is why we've taken a break till we found the man.
Yeah, and we've had to do a lot of research on this man.
Absolutely. So,
shall we do the... do you want me to do the intro?
I'd love to hear if you can do it better than you've done previously. So off you go.
Hi, we're the top...
You've bashed the mic already.
This time, I'm going to swivel round. Hi, we're the Tidy Boys. Welcome to our podcast. We've been away for a while, but we're back now, and we're back bigger than better than ever, because we've got a special guest, probably one of the biggest guests, not in size, obviously that would be hideous, but probably one of the biggest stars in Hard House, Andy.
Yeah, your intro's all right, but you forgot to give the name of the podcast, which is the Tidy 30 podcast.
I could always edit that.
Would you agree?
We could have it at the bottom of the screen.
But no, it was a reasonable intro, and you've led us nicely into our guest.
That's all I'm here for.
Can I introduce the guest?
Of course you can.
So he's probably one of my favourites, Amadeus.
There is a story attached.
If we're on the same bill, same lineup, I get a bit giddy and excited.
You do.
He is the legendary, the gorgeous Andy Farley.
Hello.
How are you?
Hello.
I'm good, thank you.
Welcome to our studio.
Thank you. Very nice.
Yeah. Are you excited by what's ahead?
I am. Yeah.
Because we are going to unpack you, and I'd like to lay you bare.
Sorry.
I'd like to lay you bare.
Okay.
For a number of reasons.
Yeah, we'll talk about Andy's infatuation with Andy. We've got two Andys. It's the first time we've had a show with two Andys. But yeah, Andy Pickles is infatuated with Andy Farley, as am I, but I'm not so vocal about it. So yeah, Andy, just to fill you in, we start from childhood, from popping out right through to the present day.
Okay.
So be prepared for that.
Okay.
Your story, your influences.
Yeah. Yep.
You know, it's a no holds barred, hence laid bare.
Okay. Yep.
And maybe a couple of things that people never knew about you.
Right.
Not even shoe size.
Yeah. Oh, shoe size. Yeah, I can tell you that as well.
I think, I'm just predicting before we get going, I think you're a 9.5.
11.
Wow.
Yeah.
I told you.
So people see you, obviously. I've seen you for many years behind the decks as a producer, DJ, but there's a lot of stuff that they just don't know about you. And we want to sort of get that journey to this success that you are today, Andy. So let's start. Should we start at the beginning?
Yeah. Where were you born?
All the basics.
All the basics. Where were you born? Were you good as a child? Let's talk about those very early years of Andy Farley.
Okay, so I was born in Brisbane, Australia.
Good start.
That was a good start.
I kind of knew that, but forgot it.
Or Bris Vegas, as it's known out there.
Can we butt straight in there, Andy?
Yep.
We don't like to do it, but we need to know straight away. Flippantly born in Australia. Why?
So my parents moved out there. When my dad came out in the Navy, my parents moved out there, I think probably 64, something like that, 1964.
Right.
That's a long time ago, before a lot of people were born, I think. But, and then my dad was working out there, and I was conceived and born out there in 1966.
So do you consider yourself to be Australian or British?
I've got dual nationality.
It's a wonderful thing, isn't it?
That is good. That's
so good. Carry on. You're born in Brisbane.
Yeah.
So my parents came back to the UK in, I think, 1966. So I was only 18 months old when we came back. So I don't remember anything. But so then from there, I was always really surrounded by music, because my parents had this big crate of 7-inch singles, which me and my sister used to play when we were younger. And it was all sorts of stuff in there, like Tom Jones, The Green Green Grass of Home, and Trini Lopez, If I Had a Hammer, and all basically like early 60s stuff and things like that. And then sort of growing up in my pre-teen years, my sister was very much into rock music, so I'd be listening to her playing things like Rainbow or Genesis or Santana.
Quite rock influenced, you really.
Bit of a rock influence in there as well, yeah. But then my parents also had a lot of albums. My dad's very much into jazz. My mum liked anything, but we also had, you might remember these, the Top of the Pops albums.
Oh, yeah,
yes.
I had some of them.
Which were basically albums of the top hits of the moment, but sung by session singers, so not the real people, but it was the songs, but not the real people. So so we're always surrounded by music of lots of different sorts, really.
Where are you living at this point? You said you moved back to England, so where in England are you?
So I can't remember, I don't know where we were when we first moved back, so I can't remember that. One of my earliest memories is we used to live in Rushall, I think it was, which is not far from Vauxhall in the West Midlands. And I think this is one of my first memories, was having the stabilisers taken off my bike and me going off and then just falling off the bike.
Oh. So you were about 15 then?
25.
Oh.
From there, we moved to Vauxhall, also in the West Midlands, which were there for a number of years, and then to Vauxhall Common, which is not far from Solihull or
Midlands lad then.
Midlands
through.
lad, yeah, basically. And then we lived there for a good few years until I was 21, and we moved over to Tamworth. So that's where I am now.
So where was your schooling? Because we like to ask about schooling, because
Yeah.
a lot of people think, does he look clever? Is he clever? Was he a naughty boy at school?
So I went to Heart of England School in Vauxhall Common. That was my secondary school, and I think the junior school in Vauxhall Common. I must have gone to. Yes, my first school was St Margaret's School, which is in Great Bar, not far from Birmingham. I can remember that going there. I can kind of remember early days. I kind of kept myself to myself, really. I was quite a shy child.
A bit like me, really.
Bit insecure, I think, as well. And then when we moved to Vauxhall Common, then I went to the junior school there, and then Heart of England School, where I stayed up until I did about a year of sixth form, and then left to go to my first job.
Was that an all-boys school, or was it mixed?
Mixed.
I went to an all-boys school. Andy.
Did you?
Yeah.
That explains a lot.
Don't
That does
start.
explain a lot, absolutely.
Well, it does, yeah.
So, at school, was music a thing at school for you?
I was in the school orchestra playing the recorder.
The recorder?
Yeah. I remember playing Yellow Bird up high in Banana Tree.
If I handed you a recorder now, could you still do your thing?
Probably, maybe after a little bit of practice. I did get up to there were two books. There was a red book and a green book, and I got up to the end of the green book, which is when you progressed onto the treble recorder was the next one up.
It's not a nice instrument, is it, the recorder? I think as a child you're given a violin and a recorder, and you go home and play it in front of your parents, and they're probably two bad instruments to just sit in a room and play, aren't they? Probably a trombone's as bad as well.
Well, or a tuba, maybe.
They should teach, I think, this is my personal, everybody should be taught the piano at school, because if you can play the piano, you can, these days you can play any instrument, can't you? So
I did have a few piano lessons, but I didn't really get very far with it. I think I can't remember how old I was when I had piano lessons, but I think I just got bored and
music's shit at school, though, isn't it? They just teach you like classical stuff, play the recorder, whereas I think these days it's probably a bit more modern, and they can teach you DJing and the theory of music. So back in our day, it was a little bit old-fashioned, wasn't it?
Yeah,
really?
it was.
Yeah,
it was.
So a good lad at school. So
Yeah,
no trouble, Andrew, were you? No trouble.
Bit
Not
shy.
really trouble, no. I kept myself out of, I didn't get into fights and stuff like that. I just kept myself away from it. I was always in the group of friends that were like the losers, I guess, really, or the not the losers. That's probably the wrong word. I am a loser. No,
Let it out, Andrew. Let it out.
The quiet bunch.
the quiet ones, the outsiders that were always
get it.
picked last at football and.
So you weren't very good at sports then?
Apart from athletics, I was the second fastest in the school for the 100 metres.
Good runner.
Good runner, yeah.
Told you.
I thought he was.
So used to enjoy athletics and swimming. and a bit of tennis maybe. But
I like swimming, but I didn't learn to swim until the last week at school.
Why is that?
'Cause I've got no natural buoyancy. No, I used to mess around in the pool and splash around where other people were concentrating. I used to just splash around. What?
It's a great insight.
Yeah. So you're a good swimmer, good runner.
yeah.
Long jump, hop, skip and jump, I would have thought.
What the triple jump?
Triple jump.
wasn't too bad, I don't think. I didn't really do that. I mean, it's
Bit camp, isn't it, the triple jump?
It is.
I probably would have fitted in well there, really. But yeah. So, but then during my school years, I became. Here's another fact that here you go.
Go on
Unpacking. Then I was a bit of a plane spotter.
Oh, were you?
what's
I
that?
was, yeah.
It's like train spotting, but in the sky.
Oh, my dad was an air traffic controller at Birmingham Airport, so I used to go with him most weekends, and just sit there and
Write numbers down.
write numbers down.
Bit like trains, right?
Well, not-
Weren't you into that?
No, bird watching.
Bird watching,
Yeah.
just as bad.
Well, they fly as well, don't they?
Yeah, I love it. I saw a nut patch on my nuts at the weekend. I was thrilled, I really was.
This is
Did it
bad.
hurt?
It did.
So what sort of planes were you? They're sort of like, oh, here comes a Boeing 747.
Yeah, pretty much. It was just sort of you used to have a little book called Civil Aircraft Markings, which would have all the registrations in, and then you'd rule them when you saw that
Oh,
aircraft, and you sort of have your binoculars.
Bit like an I Spy plane, really. You tick them off.
I mean,
Yeah.
with you sort of working around the airport, does it still catch your eye? You see a craft in the sky and you go, oh, aye, what's that?
It's always there. It's always there.
Catches
You
your
always-
eye, doesn't it?
Yeah, you get excited when there's something exciting comes in. Really.
It's quite a graceful thing, isn't it?
So
Yeah.
you like flying then? You've never been scared of flying?
No, not really. No. I mean, I must admit there were a few sort of in the 2000s when I was going abroad a lot. There were a few times where I had a few moments where I was like, "Oh, statistically, I'm flying more than
You're on the floor.
than maybe other people are flying. That the chances of something happening are greater." But that was only like on a couple of flights. I didn't get scared or anything, but you just when you sat there for like 12 hours,
start
you
thinking
think of all sorts of crap.
But do you know
don't
the statistics? There was a program called Black Box, and I think you've got a 1 in 26,000, 1 in 26 million chance of crashing, and then you've got a 50% chance of surviving. So, you'd have to fly for 26,000 years for you to have a crash or something. I think I've got them right.
I think it's a really interesting stat. Well done.
Look it up.
But yeah, no, I'm not afraid of flying really.
Now, I'd like to go back to your bedroom, if I may.
Okay.
Told you.
Andy Farley's bedroom as a lad, just to understand musically what's going off there. What's on your 12-inch, your LP, your 7-inch stack there, Andy?
What posters have you got on the wall?
Yeah.
I never really had any. Well, my first kind of music that I was a bit fanatical about was the Sweet in the 70s, which were like a glam rock band.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
So I kind of was getting into or listening to music probably when I was about 5 or 6. So that would have been the early 70s, which
Yeah.
was
Glam rock.
glam rock. So
David Bowie and
yeah. So there's all those sort of things that me and my sister used to have a tape recorder that we used to record the top 20 on a Sunday. Press pause when there was the speaking, and so yeah, we. So that was kind of like my earliest band, and after that, I think
Gary Glitter.
no, not Gary Glitter.
Well, it was a big glam.
It was
It's a
glam
shame.
rock.
It's a shame actually because I quite like some of
No, he did do some.
the Glitter band. He did some great
He
tracks.
did do some good songs.
He
but
ruined it for us all.
He did kind of, yeah.
He did because the tracks I almost want to play, and then I think, oh no,
Yeah, you can't.
I play the
And
Glitter.
you've still got the outfit as well, haven't you? But your formative years, those teenage years, I'm in your bedroom.
Puberty.
You're playing me your thing.
Yeah.
Because my thing at the time was like Ska, Madness, Bad Manners, Specials. Then I had a rock period.
So I think one of the earliest singles I bought was Wizard, I Wish It Would Be Christmas Every Day, when that first came out, that was 1974.
Or 3, yeah.
Or was it 3, I think?
I think 3 or 4, yeah.
Yeah. So that was, I can still picture the label. It was on Harvest Records. It was a green label with like some weird
Yeah.
thing like that on it. And then after that, I can't remember everything I bought, but I do remember buying Dancing Queen when it first came out, and
76.
Figaro by Brotherhood of Man,
Yeah, I think they were both 76.
and probably the Wombles album as well. But we'll skip over that one.
The Wombles.
Yeah,
Oh.
Yeah, we all
that
bought
was last
records.
week. That was-
Yeah.
yeah.
But we all bought records, and we all remember those early records, didn't we?
Yeah, Shaking Stevens, This Old House was probably one
Was
of my...
that your first record?
Well, yeah, I think the Boomtown Rats Don't Like Mondays, or Rat Trap maybe. And certainly Shaking Stevens was right in there.
Well, mine, I didn't buy it myself, but my first earliest two records were Rolf Harris, Two Little Boys. Yeah.
The theme here.
The last number one of the 60s, and the other one was I'm an Urban Spaceman by the Bonzo Dog Doodah Band.
Oh yes,
Do you
yeah,
remember
yeah.
Specialist.
So those are my two. But then you become a mod, but we're not there yet, aren't we?
So where are we? 75, 76. So yeah, then I used probably about 78, 79. My sister used to go to a disco on a Thursday night because she worked at the airport as well, and it was a place called the Warwickshire Aero Club. Not that that's relevant, but so she used to take me there on a school night, and we used to dance. And I can't remember what time it finished. It's probably about midnight, I think, which is quite out there really at that age. And I don't think my mum was very happy that we were out till that time. But yeah, but then they'd play all sorts of stuff. So there'd be disco, bit of Status Quo, all sorts really. It was just like one of those discos where they play everything. So I was exposed to a lot of stuff then, and kind of a bit of the disco era as well.
Yeah, a bit of everything.
Bit of
really.
everything.
I think the late 70s, 76 to 78 was just, if you look at the charts, it was a mixture of one minute you got the Wombles, then you got Status Quo, then you got Black Sabbath, and then you got Brotherhood of Man on the same top of the pops. So that period, we were all into everything when it was where we discovered. So we were confused in the late 70s.
Confused, yeah. But then probably towards probably about 1979 was when I was starting to become aware of like the mod thing. I can't even remember how I got into it really.
Specials. It was the time of Madness specials. Two-Tone Records had just been formed.
And the Jam.
The Jam.
Secret Affair.
Yeah.
So yeah, there were all these kind of bands around. It's probably from seeing them on Top of the Pops, but I kind of fell into the mod thing, and honestly can't remember how I got into it. But like my friendship circle was kind of with people that were into that. And then so that would have been 79, so it would have been 13 then.
Are you dressing as a mod, Andy? Are you wearing the stay press and the parka and the brogues and stuff?
Yeah, so probably from about 80, 81 was when it kind of accelerated, and I really got into it to the point of probably mid-80s. We were actually doing things like, I mean, we were quite young at the time, would have been 16 maybe, like having trousers and shirts actually tailor-made.
Wow.
I'd love to see a photo.
I'd like to see a photo. I'm starting to picture it. Is there any photos of you as a mod?
There is on Facebook actually.
He's got one in his pocket. Yeah, we'll have a...
I'll send you them afterwards.
Yeah, just make sure you send the right folder this time. But I picture, it's weird that we got a similar. I was into disc. I'm allowed to talk about Village People again without you saying about me being gay. I was into 78, 79. Bought my first 12-inch single. I bought In the Navy. So I'm into disco. But equally, when I get to 79, 80, I have this switch to Madness and Specials, and I become a mod as well. What happened? What were we both thinking?
I don't know really. I guess it's just.
Fashion and music went together, though.
Yeah, I mean, it was very fast moving towards the end of the 70s because you had punk music, and then you had two-tone and ska, and the mod thing came along, which is kind of the antithesis of punk, which was the antithesis of disco. So there was I think there was a lot of angst at the end of the 70s as well, wasn't there, in early 80s?
Yeah, what were you into at the end of the 70s?
I'm a bit younger than you two, aren't I?
So what, you were still...
So I
Bay City Rollers,
was
probably.
born in 69, so I was 11 as we went into the 80s. So yeah, I was into just general, I suppose, pop music. You know, there was a bit of Shaking Stevens in there. I was young, naive, that kind of thing. But then it was the Jam, it was Madness, Bad Manners. That was where I went, and then progressed into.
So we were all into ska, weren't we, in that early 80s? I would have thought.
Yeah, the Beat
Take
were
It or
my
Leave It.
favourite.
Yeah,
Actually.
the Beats.
Oh yes, I love
They were
the
my
Beat.
favourite.
Didn't you do a record with Rankin Roger?
I did. And Bad Manners, Rankin Roger, Bad Manners,
Buster Blood Vessel.
Selector.
Okay.
So yeah, after the Jive Bunny days, I did a thing called The Sound of Ska, which was probably 1992-ish, something like that.
Well, they were all quite local because a lot of the specials and the selected were from Coventry. So that was where I was living at the time in Vauxhall Common. That was really close to Coventry.
Yeah.
So there was a big. A lot of the stuff came out of there, and the beat were from Birmingham as well, I think. So
yeah.
But yeah, it kind of then it progressed into with the friend circle that we had. We were kind of seeking out. There was a book at the time called Mods, which was basically lots of photographs from the 60s. So we took a lot of images there. And there's a big page of 7-inch singles, 67-inch singles. So then I started collecting music, really, quite frantically, really. Just I had to have everything, and so all my wages that I earned at the time, I was working at this time.
What was your first job, by the way?
So my first job, I left school. I dropped out of sixth form after a year, and I got a job in a travel agent's in Coventry with this dodgy bloke who basically wasn't paying tax or national insurance, and after 3 months he just went out of business. So I was on the dole for about 2 years after that, I think. So that was quite hard, really, because it was doing the mod thing and being on the dole was quite hard, and it was quite hard to find a job. Like the early 80s, it was quite
3 million unemployed, wasn't it?
Yeah,
That was the
it was
logo,
pretty rough.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had my first scooter at that time, and I started collecting. We used to go around Gosford Street in Coventry, but there was a good record shop up there, so you go there like every Saturday and have a hunt through, see if there's something in there. And then I started getting into more rare stuff as we started going to different R&B and soul nights. Got heavily into R&B and
Is the
blues.
Northern Soul into? Are you
Northern
collecting
Soul.
Northern Soul? Or I'm going to say, what were mods collecting? Because I was collecting the modern sort of mod stuff, but you were going back to the 60s. So were you Northern Soul, or what were you collecting?
It was not so much Northern Soul. It was dependent. There was some crossover because there were some tracks which were considered mod tunes to us, but they were also big Northern Soul tunes. So there was some crossover, but there was also a lot of R&B, modern jazz, soul, blues, things like that. So I started collecting, and at that time there was no Discogs or eBay or anything like that. You literally bought Record Collector and you went through looking through, and you were taking a chance, really, because there was no feedback on the seller or anything like that.
No,
so
right.
so eventually, over sort of a number of years, I ended up with a big record box like this with about 600 7-inch singles in there, and then we used to put on our own nights in Coventry. So that was kind of my first little bit of DJing. Was just
I'm going to say, when does the DJ come into this?
Yeah, so that was just playing that kind of stuff, really, just to a mod crowd. We'd put the nights on about 2 or 3 times a year. And
so let's talk about this first ever time you ever DJ. Are you in the bedroom practicing? Are you just thrown in a gig? Are you on the mic? Are you mixing? What's happening? Your first ever?
So this one, the mod gigs are basically just fade in, fade out.
Yeah.
Maybe talk. I can't remember if I used to talk on the mic. I was never a fan of talking on the microphone, but I might have talked in between. But yeah, and then we used to travel around the country going to different mod do's and things like that. Sometimes we go to Northern Soul nights.
Were you getting paid to DJ, or was this just for fun at this
just
point?
for fun? Just for fun. And we used to put on our own night on I think it was a Wednesday, I think, at a pub in Coventry, which is the same sort of thing. Yeah. So yeah, that was kind of. I wasn't really thinking about mixing or anything like that. It was just.
Well, they weren't made for mixing, were they?
No.
You.
They're about a minute and a half long, so
Yeah, I mean,
you got no chance.
You've got all 7 inches and probably no 12 inches in your collection at that point, I would have thought.
No, only maybe. I think one of the first 12 inches I got was the 12-inch of Tang called Malice by the Jam.
So what year are we now when you're doing these?
That was
first DJ shows?
81, I think.
All right, so we're still early on.
Yeah,
aren't we?
so it was about 15, 16. And I think one of the first. It probably wasn't the first concert, because I think the first concert I went to was Boney M, but we won't talk about that. Or shall we? No, we won't. But no, I went to see the Jam's very last gig at
Oh wow! I've seen that.
Bingley Hall. They're from Bingley Hall in Birmingham,
Wow.
which is now where the Symphony Hall is in Birmingham. That was 1982. and I went on my own actually, which was a bit of an eye opener because I'd never been to that sort of concert where it was all standing and the floor was swaying like that, and it was like, it was a bit unnerving. And then I think there were loads of skinheads outside at the end trying to beat people up. But
it was that era.
It was that era, yeah. There was, but that was my first concert, and then after that, we went to a lot of the mod doers up to about 85, 86, and then we kind of we're into the Style Council, which were kind of
spin-off of the Jam.
Yeah, it was. But they were more going down a sort of jazzy route, or getting into like the jazz funk scene of the 80s as well. So it was kind of just broadening of evolving into different things really. And then towards the late 80s, so we're talking just getting to my late teens probably, we started to get into rare groove, which was kind of going back to the 70s funk, but it was like an evolution of what we were listening to before in a way, but it was early. Then we're getting into like some early Def Jam hip hop, and
your collection must have been all over the place as far
very
as
random,
eclectic.
Did you keep any of those records?
No. So the big box of 60s stuff I actually sold for 500 quid, I think, in 1988, I think, to buy my first decks.
Oh, right.
Which wasn't. It sounds like a lot of money, but I know that one of the records in there now is worth that. So, but
there's a means to an end to get those.
Yeah,
decks,
exactly. So I might not have done what I've done up till now had I not done that.
Absolutely.
So it's not something I'd beat myself up about. It's just interesting to look at some of the tunes I had in there and seeing how much they're worth now. But. So yeah, that was 1988, I think.
Where the hell is Hi-NRG coming into this? Because I'm waiting for the turning point where all of a sudden the mod becomes.
Let me have a sip of water, and
this is the turning point. I know it's coming, but one day is Ahmad, he's into Northern Soul, and the next minute he's dancing to Sunita in a gay bar. Something's got to happen.
There's a pivot somewhere.
So I guess around 85, 86, maybe even before that, I obviously knew that I was different, I suppose we'll call it, and without that sounding weird.
What age are you when you find?
So I came out when I was 21, so that would be 1987.
Right. Yeah.
But so the first time actually, I didn't come out until after I'd been to like the first. I think I went to a gay bar with the Jester in Birmingham in
I know it well.
1986.
Of course you do.
Which was always a bit of a worrying one to walk into, because you had to go downstairs into the bar, and obviously if you tripped, you'd have gone rolling all the way. The bar was literally at the bottom of the stairs. And if you'd have fallen down, you'd have just really embarrassed yourself. Anyway, that was the first place I went to. And then people kept saying to me, I have to come round to the Nightingale. And I was like, oh, not sure. Gay club, not sure. But yeah, I did. I think it was February 1987 was the first time I went there.
We could have actually, little did we know, we might have been at the bar buying a drink together, and we didn't know.
Never know. But yeah, Tony was playing, and I can remember it like it was yesterday, because the first tune he played was "Open Your Heart" by Madonna, and he just kept the intro, the bit at the start, the little like twinkly bit at the start. He kept that going for ages before he actually let the track go. And my straight friends came with me, and they were straight on the dance floor, and I was like, ooh, I'm really scared, and I don't think I danced all night actually, but I don't know what the turning point there was in terms of wanting to mix, or when it was, but
you must have enjoyed yourself at that night. Something must have, a switch must have gone off, and
I think the thing was at the time in gay clubs then, the music you heard there you probably wouldn't hear anywhere else, because it was very distinctive music. Not necessarily, some of it was geared towards a gay crowd, but there were other tracks that used to come in from Italy and Germany, which is known as Eurobeat or Italo Disco, which you wouldn't hear that, you'd rarely hear it anywhere else. So I was straight away I was like, what's this? There's all this music that I've never heard before. So I literally went record shopping probably straight afterwards and was trying to remember the names of the songs that I'd got in my head. And that was kind of the start of collecting vinyl then, and that went on until I'd guess probably late 1987 maybe.
So I mean, it is the same. We are sort of when you're in the Jester, and if Tony's playing Open Your Heart, my first memory, weirdly, is Tony playing Open Your Heart, but it's across the road at the Dome
yeah.
on a Monday night at Bolts, and he's got Open Your Heart on, but he's got a keyboard plugged into the mixer, and on the intro, he's actually playing the chords over the top of Open Your Heart and mixing it in. And I was on the balcony before, and I was like, I must have been just slob. I couldn't believe that a DJ was doing this. And he had 2 copies because then he could have messed around. And this was 87. It was really weird because Tony would start the night off. He played like a 12-inch version of Hot Chocolate or something, so 108 BPM while people are coming in, and people forget that then Tony's on all night. You know, DJs used to do 4 or 5 hours.
Yeah.
There was no other DJ on, probably Funky Dunk, but that was it. And he just built it from 108 BPM to ended up about 140. So we were definitely on the same path at that junction.
Could have got together.
Well,
Could have been a beautiful thing.
I was obviously with my girlfriend at the time.
You say.
My girlfriend. But yeah, the Nightingale. Did you go to the Dome, Birmingham Bolts?
I did actually, but it's one of the later ones, so it would have
When Hazel Dean and 7th Avenue are performing, probably.
maybe. I only went to one, I think, because I think they finished not long after that. But
It's weird because the Jester is on that roundabout, isn't it? And then across the road is where the Dome used to be, so
Yeah.
it weren't that far away. But
so the Dome is now the O2 Academy, where the TDV thing was.
that's right.
ironically.
Yeah, if anybody
I
wants.
didn't realise that because I did go to the Dome myself.
Well, yeah, the reason we did the TDV 20 at that venue was because Tony used to play there as a
Right,
resident, so it all made perfect sense. And to go
before
back.
that, it used to be called the Night Out.
Oh right.
And in fact, Boney M weren't the first band I went to see. When I was very young, my mum and dad used to go there quite often, and I saw Shawaddy Waddy and the 3 Degrees.
Do you like Schwartz?
Oh yeah, Schwartz the album.
Yeah,
So you went into rock and roll then. Quite clearly, you've got Shaky Stevens, Shawaddy Waddy, probably Darts.
I did, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you're Joe Bunny was
Daddy
obviously
Cool.
about rock and roll, but he was into rock and roll as a kid. Then
There you go.
there you go.
See,
So
little did we know.
little did we
Yeah.
know what was going to happen. So I like this bit because you're obviously now it's getting exciting. DJ, Tony De Vit, Hi-NRG.
You've got your decks. You've sold your 7 inches.
Yep, sold all those. So the first decks I had were Citronic decks, belt drive. I got them from Tandy's.
Yeah.
For those of you that don't know, Tandy is you think Richer Sounds is kind of the equivalent now.
It was
isn't
the mecca for people that
Yeah.
were into, you buy your mixer, your plug sockets, your phonos from there. It was the place to go.
So yeah, I had this mixer that was about this big.
Realistic. Was it called Realistic?
Yeah, and it used to have these dials that used to go like that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Really.
2 channels. Yeah, and just basically learnt on those. The Citronic decks had a little wheel you had to turn around as like the pitch control.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just bought those. Probably would have been 88, I think, and
Good year.
just messing around with those for about a year. In fact, I've been tidying up my office at home, and I found all my original recorded cassettes from then.
Did you were you self-taught? So you got the decks. Were you just going to have a go yourself? Or
Yeah.
Did somebody teach you?
No, just apart from the Nightingale, I also went to the Powerhouse on a Thursday night, which was Funky Dunk's night, and kind of just got to know him. Was friends with him. Used to go to Loading Bay Records to get my records and stuff, and yeah, just from going out, I was thinking, I don't really know what the catalyst to do it was really. Just buying all these records and was like, I wonder if I could do that. And so yeah, just went out. Eventually one day I thought, right, get some decks on hire purchase
Yep.
and give it a go really.
So what was your first proper DJ gig then?
So my first proper DJ gig was some friends put on this night at Goldwyn's in Birmingham, which is now I don't know if it even is did turn into the Beer Keller. I don't know if you know where the Beer Keller is in Birmingham, but it's near to the Alexandra Theatre. So yeah, it was there in 1989, and it was just playing a mixture of all sorts, really. I think I can remember playing the slowie at the end was "Miss You Like Crazy" by Natalie Cole.
Yeah.
Used to play a slowie at the end. I think they did 2 gigs there. So I played twice, and then it finished. And I think probably after about a year or towards the end of '89, I think that's when I bought some Technics.
Oh.
And that was like learning all over again, because I'd gone from belt drive, which were really sloppy, to Technics, which weren't sloppy at all. So you had to kind of relearn a little bit. I think I still had the ship mixer, but
89 was a great year because you bought your first decks, Technics. I bought mine, and you had 3 number ones.
They did.
Oh, you
Yeah.
So there we are, learning to
Happy
mix.
days.
It's on top of the pops with Gary Davis.
Yeah, you were looking on, thinking, "Who's this guy with the big
Mixing
hair?"
records.
Yeah.
What do you think? Just butt in here. What do you think? Did you remember Giant?
Did you have one in your collection?
I'd heard of them. Yeah, I do remember it. Yeah, I think my dad had one of them actually.
Oh, that's
Probably
lovely
more
to know. Whereas you were a big fan, a little bit obsessed.
Well, I wouldn't
Yeah,
say
you
that.
were.
I was just, I looked on from afar.
Yeah, you came up to see me.
Yeah, that's
you
how we
did.
met.
1989. Yeah.
So just backtracking a little bit, actually, that just going back to the Nightingale as well. It was also the time that so we'd got like Hi-NRG music, we got Italo disco, Eurobeat, but then also the early house stuff was coming in as well.
Yeah,
so and toward 88 as well was acid house. So on a night out at the Nightingale, you'd hear like Italo disco, then bit of house, bit of acid house, then into the faster Hi-NRG stuff, and then after that in 89 it was when the Italo house, which is all the piano stuff, was coming in. So it was a really exciting time, really, because there was lots of new music coming through all the time, new styles, if you like. I mean, it was
Even New Beat. You remember
New
that?
Beat as well. That was
114 BPM.
Yeah.
Which was an accident because a Belgian DJ had played Hi-NRG at 33 pitch down or something.
Yeah.
So that's how he worked it out. So that was a new sound in Belgium. But yeah, that was a tricky time.
Yeah, it was
Program New Beat.
Yeah. It was just like a phase, really. I think it's kind of like it was maybe a bit more fast paced than it is now.
128 was fast back in, because that was the 128 BPM was the Hi-NRG BPM, wasn't it? Everybody aspired to 128.
Well, it used to be the goal used to try and get to Holding Out for a Hero, which was about 148, wasn't it? Something like that. If you could get from 108 to 148, you're like, yes.
But you had 4 hours to do it.
Yeah.
Because most DJs played all night. So in 89 you got your first decks. You can't beat Technics, can you? I mean,
No.
the ones upstairs, they're the same ones I bought in 89. So
Are they really?
Yeah, the exact same ones. So yeah, once you've got them, you fall in love with them. So easier to mix on than Novice's Tronic.
Yeah, once I got the hang of it, the only annoying thing, and like anybody who's used the early Technics will know this, when you get to around 0,
It was a bit dodgy.
it would always go a bit weird until they removed that in the later models. But so bought my Technics, and then I can't remember what month it was, but 1990, they were looking for basically Tony had got a residency at Heaven on a Saturday, and Saturday was his big night. So they were looking for new DJs anyway. So they had a DJ competition, which I entered. Now at the time, where the permanent DJ booth was being moved to a new position, so I was in like a temporary setup on the stage. So, and it was a Monday night, and I did my set. I mean, it wasn't very busy, and that was my first set. But because because I hadn't got to use the proper DJ booth because it was being refurbished, they let me do another set. So another Monday I did it again, and then they asked me to cover Tony's Saturday night in the main room, which was like, that was my huge.
That was
the
the big
time.
breakthrough moment.
Yeah, I guess so. And it was a bit, I didn't know what to do really, because at that time Tony had switched his music over to playing the Belgian techno stuff. So he's playing a lot of the RNS records, things like Outlander Vamp and CJ Boland and stuff like that. I was like, oh, what do I do? So I went out and I bought a load of this stuff, a load of this kind of like bleepy techno as well, thinking it was the right thing to play. And then because people that knew me came down to see me play, I ended up playing like a night of Hi-NRG basically, which there were a few boot faces of people that were had come down to see Tony, didn't know he was there. But I think a lot of the crowd that followed him had gone down to see him play at Heaven.
But it was a tricky time because, like you said, the transition from being a Hi-NRG DJ to Eurobeat, you've got Stock Aitken Waterman, and then comes house, then what we call rave and techno. Nobody knew what to do, did they? And I suppose. So did you continue with, when you got that residency with Hi-NRG, or did you move over to the harder stuff?
I was always looking for different styles anyway, so that there was a lot of like the early vocal house stuff as well, early 1990, 91, so a lot of the Steve Silk Hurley remixes of pop records. 91, 92 there was a lot of like Dave Morales and stuff like that, so I was playing a mixture really, so anything that kind of fitted the vocally kind of It wasn't necessarily Hi-NRG, but it was still vocally, and it was just new sounds basically. And a lot of the labels like that came out, like Almighty Records and Clone Records, which were doing Hi-NRG but in a modern style really.
It's at this point the straight clubs caught up with the gay clubs, I think, in the early 90s, because you used to get all the upfront stuff in it. If you wanted to hear new music, you went to a gay club, and all the straight clubs were playing probably pop. But it was at 92 when the rave thing came in. All of a sudden, that you had the Summer of Love. People went raving, and all of a sudden there was a blur between gay clubs and straight clubs, weren't they? And unfortunately, later in the 90s, we realised that the gay clubs actually never really followed the fashion, and they ended up. You went to a gay club in the 96, and they still wanted Gina G when the rest of us wanted to move on to hard house and other stuff, didn't they? So they sort of fell behind, didn't they? I think gay clubs in the end.
Well,
they didn't.
Apart from trade, I suppose.
Apart from
trade,
I think we're just about to get onto that now, aren't we? So from Heaven to Trade, because I always forget what year Trade started. Do you remember?
I think it was 90, might be 89 or 90. I think.
Oh, that early.
That early, yeah.
I know it was early, but it wasn't. It was a long time before Tony actually got in there, because he worked his way hard to work his way in there, didn't he? Everybody assumes he just went.
I think it spawned out of a club called Troll, I think it was.
That's right. Yeah.
But yeah, so I guess 1991, it was a bit of a transition period, because they basically made the main room. Tony, I think, had left. I can't remember what year he left. But he went off to pursue other things, to play at Trade and do the techno thing that he was doing at the time. So they took me on as a resident, and they opened a second room at the Nightingale, and the main room was just more commercial pop stuff, whereas I'd be in the back and I'd play more underground, Hi-NRG. But there's also, it's a bit of a crossover with, I was quite getting into a lot of the European. There were Hi-NRG records, but had ravey influences.
I'm trying to think of a good example. There was a lot of Italian stuff. I'm trying to think of. I know what you mean. It was almost like the Capella. You remember Capella?
Yes, that type of thing.
That sort of stuff, where it was a mixture of ravey.
So it was energetic. I think they called it Euro Zone or something like that, or Italo Zone or something. But yeah, so it was the right BPMs. It was like 130 plus. But heavier kick drums and rolling bass lines and rapping in it. Things like Culture Club, Mr. Vane, and I'd be playing Rhythm is a Dancer, stuff like that. So that was 93, I think, was it? Or not, something like that.
When we had Rob Sear on the show, his journey was very much through the rave scene. Did you find yourself venturing into those warehouse parties?
No,
or did you stayed in the club?
Yeah, so because I got a residency at the Gale, they did have one all-nighter in 1992 to try and go up against, at the time, Tintin's was like the all-nighters to go to. They were trying to go up against them because there was a bit of competition between them. And they did an all-nighter, and that was the first time I met Ian, actually.
Talk about Ian.
E&M.
Yeah, we'll talk about E&M in a bit. I've got some questions about E&M.
But yeah, and I can remember playing totally different. So I played like the Jam and Spoon mix of Age of Love and things like that, and it was a totally different thing for me. It was playing something totally different.
Yeah.
And then so after that, I think early '94, I think I was also playing at a club called Gavin's in Wolverhampton, where I'd be playing in the upstairs room, playing commercial dance, I suppose, but again, same sort of thing, like cappella, vocal house stuff.
All this going on. What, are you still got a day job? What's going on in your life?
Yeah, I was still working. So at that time, I was working for British Airways at the airport, shift work, which didn't always fit very well around doing gigs.
Customer service, where were you? What were you doing?
So I was there for 13 years. So I joined in 1987. I spent about 5-6 years doing check-in, lost baggage, meeting flights, that type of thing. Then I moved. Then I got a bit bored of, or a bit fed up of dealing with people. So I moved into terminal control, which was it's where the aircraft were going to park. You'd sort that out and speak to the flights that were coming in. Then I did crew control and cabin crew rostering. Then that moved to a Monday to Friday job, so that worked quite well around my DJing. And I left there, stayed there until 99, I think.
You never wanted to be a flight attendant, though?
I did apply once, but I think my moustache was too big.
Oh, really?
Your what was too big?
Moustache.
Oh, you still got the tash at that time?
Yeah, it was a bit of a whopper.
Because,
Was
I
it?
mean, there
yes.
is a famous picture, I think, of you in your, let's say,
I think there's a couple floating around, actually.
Yeah, with the leathers, the chaps, and the
Yeah, I don't know what I was
You went
wearing.
all out.
That wasn't my thing at all, actually. But
Is it just a phase, wasn't
it
it?
was just, well, I just thought, oh, that's what people are wearing. So
Well, if you went to the Nightingale, it was poppers and leathers. You know, I mean, that was what you. I didn't.
You did.
I want to make that clear. I wasn't in that.
Did you
I think
not?
you identified when you go into a gay club, a straight man slightly dressed different to a gay man.
Did you?
I think.
yeah, you could probably usually tell. I think.
I mean, look, you've been to trade back in the day. You got the Muscle Mary. You know,
Yeah.
there's still a bit of that about.
Yeah,
Still
loved
leather
it.
chaps. So you lost the tash. Oh, you didn't get the job because you had a tash.
No, I don't think it was because of that.
I
It
thought
was.
that would have worked in your favour. Being
Well,
a flight attendant.
I think it was. It was back to that thing about being a bit introvert and shy. I think.
What was it like being gay
'Cause-
back then, Andy? Because, you know, just touching on this, a lot we take it for granted. That, you know, I think we live in a world now where 99.9% of people don't care, and it's part of life. But I do remember we had the AIDS thing in the 80s with these gay clubs you weren't allowed in. You know, the 80s were a tricky time.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I was really lucky coming out to my family because they were all very supportive, and you know, it wasn't really an issue for them. Apart from obviously the worrying about the AIDS thing, which was, you know, always in the headlines at the time. But yeah, I mean, in the 80s, it wasn't. You wouldn't see gay people in a straight club really, rarely, because they didn't feel comfortable really, and it was only really the advent of the late 80s house music, ecstasy. You know, it kind of brought people from all different walks of life together, and the people were just there to enjoy themselves. You know, and that was a big turning point. And I think one of the big turning points was Tony breaking out of trade, and when he went hugely successful, taking the music from a gay club, and, you know, gay people mixing more with straight people, and a club like Tintin's as well. Tintin's was essentially a gay club, but the night they used to have on at Hype, you'd have people come from. It was the only after hours club, and you'd have people come from all the different clubs in Birmingham, and even outside of Birmingham, people would come in and go to Hype, and it would just be like a big melting pot of people.
Being gay never stopped you in your DJing career, and I mean.
No, it didn't. It didn't. I did get told once that I'd never be successful because I was too gay and too old.
Really?
Yeah.
By a promoter or a club owner?
Promoter.
Yeah.
But obviously, you know, that wasn't the case.
What age
So-
must you have been? Was that not in the 80s? We're not talking 80s.
No. This would have been 99, maybe 98, 99.
Well, let's talk about your transition then into what you're known for today as a very successful hard house DJ producer. What was that transition then?
So the very first time would have been early 94 when, might be late 93, early 94, when I'd been DJing at this club in Wolverhampton, Gavin's, on a Saturday night, and somebody said to me, "Why don't you come to Tintin's to Hype?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm not sure. They take drugs in there and that type of thing." I was a little bit green behind the ears or whatever, but yeah.
Well, you'd had poppers, surely.
Yes, I had. Yeah, so I got, I say, dragged along there. Got given something and
Liked it.
Well, funny enough, we're coming over the flyover from Wolverhampton onto the A38 and the M6 as this thing was kicking in. Got to the front door of Tintin's. They were like, "Are you members?" We were like, "No, sorry, you can't come in." And I was like,
"Oh dear,
I don't know what to do now." But then I said, "Oh well, I'm actually Nightingale staff. Can I come in?" It's like, "Oh yeah, no problem." Walked up the stairs, and it was just like, "Oh my god, this is just amazing." It was just, the atmosphere was, you could just feel it as you walked up the stairs, and every tune, everyone was like, "Yeah," and it was like...
What sort of music was it? Sort of like huge tune stuff, that sort of the hard bag, as we call it.
Yeah, so basically Tintin's on a Saturday night would be in two halves. It would go until 2 o'clock, which was more commercial, big tunes, big house tunes, and then after 2 o'clock we'd go into Hype, which was underground, and Tony was on first, then Tony, Aaron Mann, Dave Simmons and Simon Baker used to close, and yeah, so it was just everything really, just all the big house tunes. Hype was a lot harder, so it wasn't not so vocally, it was more anything, I suppose you'd call it now, progressive trance. It would progress basically. So Tony, if he was on first, would play like his house stuff. He's like chunky house. Although it depends what mood he was in, because I did see him one night take him up into some Rabbit City record in about 5 tunes.
But Tony was varied. People think he just played hard house and Hoovers, but he played house to, like you said.
Oh, he played some amazing house tunes. Yeah. And I literally danced all night and got home and I'd cramp and couldn't walk for a week, but that was it. I was like, I have to go there every week. And apart from, when I was away on holiday, we would go every week. And then I think towards the end of 94, I think it was a Friday night, and we'd gone there as usual and was feeling a little bit sparkly, and the manager was like, "Don't get too bad because don't forget you're playing later." I was like, "What?" Like nobody had told me. So I had to go home and get my records and come out, and that's when I played my first set, and then I was taken on as a resident. So that was like a big turning point for me, really, Tintin's, because it was somewhere I loved going to, and then I was to get a residency there.
The first residency we remember, of course, is the famous Sunday Central. So we're jumping on a little bit now, but how did you get the residency with Madders? How did that all happen?
So Tintin's closed in early 1997, but during that time the Madders and Danny were regulars at Tintin's, and they said they wanted to do something on a Sunday afternoon. So they said, "Do you want to come as a resident?" So for us that was great, because we'd come back from Tintin's at 8 in the morning, go to bed for an hour or two, and then go out and do it all over again.
Was that at Pulse, the first?
Yes.
Yeah. So you played the first Sunday Central?
I did. I remember it really well, actually, because loads of people came in who'd been out on Saturday night and didn't know what to expect and didn't know what to do, really. And it's when Tony had done his remix of Diddy, and he'd done Are You Already, and he played those, and it was like, people were like, "Oh, I don't know what to do." But then gradually, over the next couple of weeks or so, they'd have different guests every week.
But Tony wasn't a resident straight away, or was he?
I'm not sure if it was straight away, but it wasn't not long after it started he became a resident.
Because we remember the 4 residents as Nick Kershaw, yourself, Lisa Lashes, and
Nick Rafferty.
Rafferty.
Paul Kershaw.
Paul Kershaw. I said
Not Nick Kershaw.
Did you say Nick Kershaw?
I said Nick Kershaw. We know Nick Kershaw's
Nick
famous.
Rafferty.
Yeah.
But they were the four we remember. But was that later on, or was that early?
From the start. I think it was me, Paul, Nick, and Lisa. I think.
And we all playing quite fast. I mean, I think Kershaw was probably a little bit trancier and a little bit softer, wasn't he?
Yeah. I mean, well, we're talking 96, so it wasn't really the big kind of trance explosion took off in 97. So to start with, it was anything really I'll be playing. It was quite varied. There wasn't, at that time, there weren't really labels for stuff.
No.
It wasn't like it is now where, I mean, sometimes you call it hard bag, or you'd call it pumping house or garage.
I think
or
we're
house.
to blame for the hard house tag. We always get the blame for that because we came up with it commercially first, because we didn't like the word hard bag. We thought it was a shit name. I'm into hard bag. It's like, what the hell's hard bag? So me and Paul James and Andy sat down one day, I think for Meadham, and said it's house that's hard, and we just put the two words together, and I think from that it become a thing, didn't it?
Doesn't John the Dentist disagree?
John the Dentist thinks he invented it, by the way. Where John the Dentist is in your story at the moment, I'm sure you were playing some of his tracks, but obviously John the Dentist, we'd love to get John the Dentist in that seat, I think, and so
good fun.
John, if you're watching,
so you're playing hard house. You are. At what point do you start transitioning to music production from DJing?
Well, a lot of the stuff I was playing at Tintin's, I didn't know that they were big tunes at Trade, really. Like I was playing even like 94, 95, playing a lot of Sharp Boys stuff.
we like the Sharp Boys.
Yeah, stuff on the React label, and it was just, you'd just go record shopping and be like, that's a good tune, I'll play that. And you'd kind of develop a style without putting a label on it. It was just what you played.
Yep, that's it.
And then I went to Trade. I was quite late going to Trade. I think it would have been 1996 was the first time I went to Trade. Took me a long time to go because I was like, Tony kept saying, why don't you come down? Why don't you come down? I was like, oh, I'm not sure. It's a bit full on for me.
We were about the same, 96, 97.
And then I went and I was like, wow, this is just like unreal.
Different. How
Totally
did you feel
different.
going down them stairs?
Walking through Muscle Alley, I must admit, it was a bit scary.
Unforgettable though.
Yeah.
The energy. I always say, me and Andy, when you walk that time of the morning, you could feel the heat going down them stairs, and just a euphoria of the night washes over you.
Yeah. It was just, it's always been a benchmark for me, that whole thing of, getting people in the groove slowly and then building up.
Steve Thomas was so good, wasn't he?
Yes, and he was the perfect transition. So he'd go from house music to like tin ribbon, like the scale of his set, really.
And teed it up for Tony and E&M, of course. It was, what was it, Duffy or Thompson Duffy, and then Steve Thomas, then Tony, then E&M, and finish on Pete Woolman.
Pete Woolman, yeah.
What a set that was.
Yeah.
Golden era, but he had his top off. Scared to go, a bit worried, a bit apprehensive.
Straight man in the gay club.
Straight man. I
Muscle
think
Alley.
it was Tony's second record, green laser on, couldn't see him, and the top was swinging.
Why not?
He had
When in
Rome.
He had the body for it, I didn't. So,
Bless you.
So you're at Trade, and that's obviously influences you. And we all agree, I think Tony, like you said earlier, took the gay music and that energy from the gay clubs to Sunday Central, and I suppose what you were doing as well. And the two, Sunday Central it was not a gay night, it wasn't a straight night, it was just a night, wasn't it? But everybody felt comfortable there.
Yeah, everybody was welcome, and I think that was kind of like the turning point in clubbing, really, from Tintin's. I mean, for me, it was a classic one I remember is being in there one night, and you'd have the lads in like the check shirt, from wherever, and then there'd be like I don't know if you know Folly from Birmingham. She was doing swing in full drag, swinging off the rafters of the roof, and it was just crazy. But that was what clubbing was in the 90s, really. It was just just be yourself, and everybody's here for the same reason. And
I first saw you at Pulse. I think me and Andy had come. I think John Bishop were playing as well. He was a guest, but you were a resident. and we liked you, Andy.
We liked you a lot.
But I think Andy was talking about what was your first going into production. Was what you did for Tidy and the Sunday Century P, Destroy the Sound, was that the first production?
That was the second one.
What was
The first one was Concentrate on Nucleus.
Oh, right, you got Nucleus first.
Yeah, sorry.
We don't hold that against you, do we? We don't hold
But
that.
you were more, I think, you were more of a Nucleus artist.
Well, I think the thing was, it was at that time I'd been playing a lot of the Friction Burn stuff, so I was sending in the reactions for those from Heartbeat. I think it was Heartbeat 3. I think I'd started playing them, and things like obviously when Music Is Moving first came out.
Yeah, I mean, Nucleus were, Tidy and Nucleus were sort of running alongside each other, but we both had our own sounds. I suppose Tidy was a bit broader. We got like Signum and a bit maybe trancey and commercial, whereas with Nucleus, you knew what you got. It was usually quite driving and quite hard and tough. So we had our own styles, I think.
So yeah, I mean that was '99. So because Ben had seen me playing his stuff, he said, would you like to come down and make a tune? So so Concentrate was the first one. And then Destroy the Sound was the second one.
Which, by the way, Fish Octagon.
Yes, he said, told me he played it in Poland the other week.
It's his favourite hard house track.
Is it really?
Yeah, which is, with all due respect, it's not one that you'd expect to pull out the bag and say, that's my favourite. I was surprised, pleasantly surprised, and then when he played in Malta, he dropped it. He just absolutely loves that track. So maybe there's time for a remix. 'Cause I think you did it with Andy, didn't you? You and Paul James.
Me and Paul, yeah.
Yeah. I think you did it in the Rotherham studios.
We did, yes. That was my first visit to
Parkgate,
Music
Rotherham.
Factory, yep.
Yeah, back in the day. So that was quite an important. So you had two records.
That was also quite a turning point, actually. Sorry, because I used to have a couple of the Music Factory double
Master
mixes. Yeah.
Yeah, because to be fair, issue 2, Master Mix had one disc that was aimed at the gay crowd. You had Chris Lucas and Rod from Record Shack in London.
It was the one that had
Time After Time
on it, yeah. And the other one that had I Can Fly by Rainey on it.
Yeah, I think they were early. Issue 2, I think, had Time After Time by Paul Parker on it, remixed by Chris Lucas.
The Master Mix still goes today.
Does it really?
Yeah, still going.
Yeah, still going.
Yeah.
My sister runs it with my brother-in-law.
Oh, yeah,
See all these interweaving things.
Yeah, we're all joined at the hip somewhere along the line, aren't we? We've all followed these different paths and crossed over. So Trade, Tick Box, done that. Tony De Vit, obviously you're sort of in there when Trade's at its peak, like us, and then we all get the news that Tony's not with us anymore. At the peak of his career, front page of Mixed Mag, literally got the world at his feet, and then. How did you react and feel when Tony passed?
I was really upset. I mean, I couldn't stop crying at the funeral. It was just, out of the blue, really, that, didn't expect it. And I can still remember the phone call, actually. I was at work in my day job, and Madders rang me to tell me that it happened. And, I think it's the important thing to remember is that his legacy is still with us today, and his music stands strong.
Yeah, it does.
That his mix of You Found Out has just been played by so many people, and it's one of your biggest selling records
of all the Tidy tracks. If you look at the streaming stats, Tony's mix of You Found Out is the most streamed. And a really interesting story about Tony. I was here late last night working, and there was a young lad come out. He must have been about 18. Never seen him before. He'd been in one of the studios, and he came out and saw the Tidy logo. And we walked into the car park together, and he said, "Have you ever heard of Tony De Vit?" He's 18. I said, "Yeah, we used to work and done his records." And he was in the car park talking for half an hour about Tony De Vit, and I thought, how's this 18-year-old asking me questions about Tony De Vit, which proves that his legacy has come from way back then to 18-year-olds getting into music now, and he's still being talked about, which is great, really.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So yeah, that's, like I said, it shocked us all. But there was we wanted to carry his legacy on, I do think that one thing, I stress it again, people forget how diverse Tony was.
Oh yeah,
and
definitely.
I think he's sometimes got not a bad rep, but people think Tony was. He was funny guy. He was a pleasant, funny guy that played a broad selection of music. He wasn't a hard as nails, aggressive, dare I say, Paul Glasby. People think he was just it wasn't like that.
No, and I always remember he was pretty much he'd tell you he plays house and techno, and that's it. And he was towards the end, he was getting a lot into his more trance influences as well,
Hence
which
the
he used to
Dawn.
play a lot of the fast German trance as well. But I always remember being at Sunday Central and he was playing, and in the middle of his set he dropped Nailing and Kale, Nailing, not Kale, that's something totally different. Nailing and Kane Beach Ball.
Yeah.
And I was like, I really didn't expect you to play that, but that was kind of, he'd always do the unexpected. He'd drop something in there, and you'd be like, "Oh, didn't expect you to play that, but that sounds really good."
Signum was his favourite track, before he passed away. Hence, and I'm not going to go into the story again because I'll get. But the Dawn was obviously inspired by Signum, and he did say that he wanted to go down that melodic sort of, I suppose, hard trance route, really.
Well, I think around that time anyway, that was where music was going, and I think after he passed away, it was noticeable in Sunday Central that kind of, apart from those of us that carried on playing similar stuff. I mean, I was playing a lot of other stuff as well. I was playing some trance stuff, some hard house, if you like, which it was at the time, but was that kind of stopped for a good maybe year, really, that actual hard house sound, because all the top name DJs were playing like the trance stuff, which was huge at the time.
Which is coming back round, apparently. I've heard many people, including Hannah Lane, say that the next big thing is going to be that 90s trance, that sort of out of the blue, the Goriella stuff is coming back. So
good.
We like that, don't we?
We do
like a
like
bit
that.
of melody.
Yep.
So production, tick box, what else are we doing now? Andy, obviously from here, people almost know the story that then what elevated you to become, because at one stage you were playing every hard house gig, but to be fair, there was a lot of them about.
Yeah, so on the back of like starting with Nuclear, so I worked with Ben quite a few times. We did we worked together on loads of tunes over the years, but the Nuclear's agency started must have been early 2000, I think, and it was just timing, really. I think that that happened with the time that hard house was getting in the charts, in the form of things like Yamanda and synth and string. Well, that's Yamanda anyway. I'm trying to think of the other ones now, but there was a lot of hard house that was going into the top 40, and it just kind of took off from there, really. I mean, I went from doing the maybe Sunday Central weekly and things like that to doing 6 gigs in a weekend and up and down the motorways. Yep. And I mean, 2001 was just crazy, really. I think the most gigs I did in one weekend was 9.
9 gigs. Can you make a note of that? 9. Write that
that's
down.
quite impressive.
9 gigs.
Yeah.
Because there was 9 gigs to play.
Yeah.
And the problem, we'll get on towards the end of this bit, but the problem now is there's not 9 gigs to play. So at this point, you're buying fast cars, so you're buying new clothes, and the money's rolling in. And we're in the boom years, aren't we?
Yeah.
So at what point did you become a legend?
I don't know. I mean, I've never really seen myself as that, really. I'm just do what I do. Why have we always called Andy Farley a legend?
Cornerstone, I'd say, of the hard house scene. A staple, we could say. Consistent.
I think you're guaranteed of getting a good set with Andy Farley. I mean, I've never heard anybody come up to me, and they do it to other DJs, including ourselves, like your shit, but I've never heard anybody say, I saw Andy Farley the other day and it weren't that good.
I think the key for me is it's always been just be different, really. Just don't.
But still entertain.
Not
be too different.
No.
We played with you in Ibiza last year, before, whenever it was. And as a DJ that's been playing 25, 30 years ourselves, and been in music production for many years, as a clubber stood behind you watching you play. I mean, technically you've always been incredible, but just your knowledge of music and the way you worked that particular set that night, even though I've seen you play a gazillion times, I'm still stood there going, wow, what's he playing? What's that? And it's that, I think, as you've explained your musical journey, it's within you. You understand music.
Yeah, I think it's, for me, a tune's got to touch you there, you know what I mean? It's like, I can put something on from like the Tintins era, and I'll start to fill up, or
Yeah.
you know, the hairs on my arm will stand on end. And music should do that to you, and it should always take you. Obviously, not if you're playing new music, it's not going to. But you know, I can put tunes on that I used to play or used to like when I was younger, and I can immediately see where I am, and that's what music is about. It should grab you, and so that for me, when I looking at tunes to play, it's got to be something that has got something that I think that gets you.
Do you always curate a set? So you're doing a set. Are you a person who plans knows, or you kind of know where you're going to go, or do you completely read the moment?
I've just always winged it. Yeah, basically.
As a we.
Yeah, the very first one I played, the one at the Nightingale, the DJ competition one, I did plan that, and I think after I played something that cleared the floor, and then probably the one after that didn't get the people back on the floor, and that was a good lesson really, because you know, yes, you can plan your whole set, but if you lose the dance floor and you've got nowhere to go then, because you've got to get those people back on again.
Yeah, I think broadly speaking, you can, knowing who you're playing to, where you're playing, there's a spectrum of music that you kind of feel you know where you want to go, but you've always got to read that floor, haven't you?
Yeah, exactly. And at the end of the day, those are the people that pay the money to get in the club, so they've come to see you play. You don't want to let them down, you know.
It's all about playing the right record at the right time, Andy. I think
exactly.
That's the thing. But some people say, "Oh, I love Andy Farley. He's hard as nails." But I've never found that you're too dark and hard as nails, that you'd be in Subway City at 6 a.m. playing Dirt. I don't have you as that DJ, and yet
it's always going to. For me, it's always going to have something to it that's either bit of funky, bit of a wiggle. Or it's going to be a bit uplifting. I mean, I can play dark and hard, and I have done in certain circumstances, but still within that, it's still going to have. I can't play tune after tune that does the same thing, because it then just becomes one note.
Yes,
you've got to have
variation.
Yeah, you've got to move. You've got to have movement, because you've got to keep people interested. Otherwise, there's nothing worse than playing to a dance floor of people that they're dancing, but there's no noise from the dance floor. If people aren't going, well, hey, are you really enjoying yourself, or are you just dancing because? I mean, there has to be an element of heads down. Come on, let's go for it. But there has to be something. There have to be, for me anyway. This is just how I've always looked at it. There has to be levels, because you need to keep people. You don't want people drifting off into their own little world where they're not really listening to you.
Light and shade. One would suggest a bit of light and shade.
Yeah, exactly.
And so, where has DJing taken you internationally over the years?
So let's start from Canada, America, Chile, Ireland, Ibiza, Holland, Sweden, Finland, Malta, South Africa, Japan, Taiwan, and Australia, New Zealand. I think that's.
And so, if you were to pinpoint those couple of international gigs or places, where would your favourite gigs, your best memories be internationally?
I would probably say Irish gigs are always they're always a noisy crowd, and they're always going for it. But probably closely followed by Australia and New Zealand, because a lot of the people that go to the gigs probably now are people that were in London in the 2000s, and I'm sure you know from playing in London in the 2000s, it was just crazy. You know, the Antipodean crowds.
They had that reunion in
amazing.
The New Zealand reunion that Steve Hill puts on every year. That they love it, because I suppose they don't get much of it as well. They appreciate it.
Yeah.
Whereas over here, people lost interest in hard house and clubbing, because they could do it all the time. But one thing about your sets I do like, I can still smell the Hi-NRG in it, because there's still occasionally that rolling bass line and that little wiggle, as I say. So they're always in there.
Or the vocals got to be right as well.
Yeah.
So. You know, maybe. I mean, they're a bit few and far between to find now, like that kind of diva-ish vocal. But it's always got to be a little bit.
You know what my favourite track is, Andy Farley?
Go on.
It's one you did with Dave Owens.
Oh, Kiki.
Kiki.
KK.
KK or Kiki, yeah.
Kiki.
Under DOAF.
Yes.
Yes, and we always play that out. And I always say to people, I don't know why I like it, but I love it because it literally does nothing but everything.
Swings your tits.
It just swings, and the breakdown. And then when it kicks back, it just slaps you in the face. And I love tracks that just build up and slap you in the face. So that's my favourite. So dig that out. I don't know. Is it on a label? What happened to it?
It did come out. I think it was on what's Dave's label called? I've completely forgotten what his label's called.
Well, if it's available to license, I want to re-license it.
I'll speak to Dave.
Speak to Dave because that needs to come back, I think. So we like that. Andy's probably got a big question for you in a minute, but I've got a couple of others that I wanted to ask you. So, what do you think about the scene today? Because we're right present. So you've been through, you've become a legend. Everybody knows Andy Farley. Everybody loves Andy Farley. But what does Andy Farley think of where we're at now? Because we are in a period of, as you know, hard house, let's call it that for a minute.
It's in the charts again.
It's in the charts, and it's back, and you've got Hannah and Patrick Toppin and Eats Everything all playing this stuff, which is primarily hard house with a slightly different kick drum. What do you think about it?
I think it's good. I mean, it's you've got to always got to embrace new sounds that come along. I mean, the maybe the way the tracks are laid out is different.
Shorter.
We're used to massive build up and then everything in, whereas a lot of the stuff that is within that scene is big build up and then just drop kick and bass. But play a bit of both, you know what I mean? It's like there's no reason why you can't mix the two. It'd be nice for the two worlds to come together. I think that is the tricky part, I think, because the younger crowd are used to doing what they're doing, and the hard house crowd are used to doing what they're doing, and it's trying to bring the two together.
What about the DJs coming together? I know what you mean about the crowds because they're slightly different, obviously in age, but
well, I think as well, musically there's maybe different expectations. You will get some people that will cross over and go to both, but your hard house crowd know what they like, which is great, that's fine, and the younger crowd are used to what they're used to. So maybe if they went to a hard house night, they might not get the music, and the same with like some of the hard house crowd going to the newer hard house. You're like, oh, this doesn't do what we like. But I think it's that trying to bring the two together. There's got to be a way to do it, and I think it would be beneficial for both, really. I mean, the thing is the newer scene is obviously huge at the moment. And that's great. It's.
But we've got to try and put some of mix the legacy acts with the new ones, because I think the new DJs have got respect for the legacy acts, and we've got respect for them, even if we're in room two. I think bringing the two together, but I think with I always say, if you can get an 18 or a 19-year-old and bring them to a tidy event, like a weekender. I was speaking to one the other day. I think, he's actually 27. And he said he's been to Creamfields, he's been to Tomorrowland, and he went to his first tidy weekender, Tidyland 2023. And he said it was the best experience he's ever had. Of course, it hadn't got the production of Tomorrowland, but he said experience, vibe, energy, people. He said he'll never forget it. So if we can get younger people into our events, I think they're there for converting. Why wouldn't an 18-year-old love the experience that our lot enjoy when they're 18? There's no reason why not.
I mean, I've got a 21-year-old who goes clubbing, and he is hearing tracks that were in our box 20 years ago that some of the big DJs are playing now at Creamfields and such like. He's referencing me tracks. So the tracks that we have played and will play are finding their way into mainstream sets. So the two sounds are actually coming together.
Yeah.
You're getting that eclectic mix sometimes across.
I think that's the key, really. I think it's got to be about mixing it up, really, and embracing the new sounds and mixing it with the sounds that we're used to.
Chatting to Ben BK, of our generation, I think Ben's actually doing that, isn't he? He is playing those gigs. He is alongside some of those newer big DJs. So I think Ben's getting it right, isn't he?
And I think I was speaking to him about it, and he's saying like it's approaching it slightly differently. So whereas we're used to doing really long mixes and then break down, then heads down into the next mix and that, it's more with the younger crowd that are going to these gigs. It's more about the Instagram moment and so it is different. It's a different approach, really, and But that's fine. I mean, it's like there was a gig I was supposed to do this weekend, but unfortunately it's been cancelled. But that was on the lineup with Charlie Sparks, who's a big hard techno DJ, and it would be a case of taking the tracks that you know, but making them shorter so that you've not got that. You're more interactive with the crowd.
More instant, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, Hannah Lane just remixed We Came We Saw by Lisa Lashes, and I got through the extended version, and it was 3 minutes 30. And that was the extended version. And obviously it's for streaming as well. Attention spans are shorter. They want to, and I understand it. Looking back, why would you have 1 minute 56 of a drum with a bass? They want to get to the point.
I think as well now, with technology as well, you've got option. You can just loop something for ages and then drop into it. So is there a need for an 8.5 minute tune anymore? I mean, most of the stuff I've been putting out on my label is probably. I mean, there are some which have been 7.5, 8 minutes long, but mostly about 5.5, 6 minutes really, because you don't really need all that so much now.
We touched on the Weekender, and obviously Tidy 30 this year in April.
That's
got the flyer there.
That's mad.
Do you want to have one of them?
Oh, I'll take a flyer. I'll put it for my collection.
Your name's on it.
So we have moved to our new home.
Venue.
Yes, I'm quite excited.
And were you at the first? Have you done them all?
I thought you were going to say, have you
Give
done
us
any?
your potted history of the Tidy Weekend.
Well, judging by the video that's popped up on YouTube, I was at the first.
Because it was always his birthday in April.
Yes.
Backstage.
I think you missed a few through holidays and stuff.
Yeah, there's about 2 or 3 I've missed, but I think I've done. Apart from that, I've done every single one.
Have you got sort of highlights? How would you just sort of describe the Tidy Weekender to those
people who haven't been?
Who've not been?
It's just a great bunch of people all getting together for a weekend party, basically. It's some fantastic DJs, some great music, amazing atmosphere. It's just good fun. Do it. Whichever camera we're on.
Yeah, we always say there's no party like a Tidy party, and I think the Weekenders have been the stable diet of clubbers for the last 23 years, haven't they? And it's the go-to event. And hopefully, if this one works out well and Park Dean like us and we like them, fingers crossed, it could be a nice new annual event. I think people are going to enjoy the new experience. There's places to eat. It's much better to sleep. You've got nicer accommodation, and the main room we really like because it's more clubby, lower ceiling. Like room 2 at Prestatyn, where you've got that low ceiling. So it's a nice clubbier vibe, whereas I think probably the main room at Prestatyn, as Andy said, was probably a bit too big and a bit empty sometimes.
Yeah, it was quite wide, wasn't it?
Quite wide, yeah. This one, I think you're going to love it. So we like the Weekenders, and hopefully, fingers crossed, touch wood, we're going to be going there every year if we could. So if you've not been, I'd definitely recommend you go. It's just a great weekend of debauchery.
Party, basically.
Measured debauchery.
Yeah,
yes.
Fun and
games, yeah.
So just fast forward, to the present moment, you now as a DJ producer, what does your professional DJ world look like now? Are you still touring? Are you still out?
I mean, it's. There's not so much international stuff around these days, which is fine. I mean, there is. But it's, as for the new generation, are doing a lot of travelling. But the nice thing is that they're taking harder sounds to places where it was never like big before, like America. Hannah's just done a tour of America, and she's been to Australia about 2 or 3 times in the last year, I think.
Yeah.
So it is. It's they're taking the sound to new audiences, which is great. Fantastic. But for me, really busy.
35 years, isn't it, this year?
35 years this year, yeah.
Wow.
So it's a big anniversary year.
It is.
Have you got anything special planned?
Well, there's bits coming in. So we've got it's quite nice because my Pure event in November, it's actually the 15th birthday of that in November as well. So that's like me playing 10 hours on vinyl.
10 hours on vinyl?
10 hours on vinyl, yeah.
Wow.
So next weekend, I don't know when this is going to be broadcast, but next weekend I'm at Insomniacs in Birmingham, and then I've got Frantic at Ministry of Sound the week after, Storm the week after that.
Weekender, of course, coming up in
Weekender on the
April the 25th.
25th. What else I've got in April? I've got Mind Spin, which I'm doing a techno set. That's 8th of April.
So are we ready for my
Your question. I've got one, which is there anything you hate? I'm not talking
in
about
general.
In anything. I always say this: anything that pisses you off, niggles you, Andy, because you know you're a nice, happy-go-lucky chap, but there's always something that surely pisses you off.
Social media pisses me off.
And the fact that DJs have to do crazy things to get social media bookings, or everything.
Well, no, not just that. I mean, it's just social media in general, basically. I'm not a huge fan, really.
What, doing it, watching it, or?
I think, I don't know. I think sometimes it can be quite toxic, which I don't like. But I just use it for what I need to use it for, which is, to push my gigs.
But these days you have to. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
If you speak to a young 18-year-old now, if they haven't got millions of followers on Instagram, they don't get bookings, and that's the dichotomy that we have as older DJs. If you're not on TikTok dancing in your kitchen with 2 fried eggs on your head, you're not going to get a booking.
I have opened a TikTok, but only for my label, not for me. I'm not going to be.
Were you going to be dancing in the kitchen?
Not going to be dancing in the kitchen, no.
Oh.
It's only to push the releases on my label.
But we have to play the game, don't we, Andy?
Yeah, exactly. And it's, I know it's there to be done. And I think I got to a point where I was just like, do you know what? I'm just tired of reading crap, basically.
Here.
So I'll go on there and, I'll interact with people when it needs to be interacted with. But it's just not something I'm on all the time, really. I don't think I just found myself I was just sitting there
Scrolling.
just doing that and just getting really wound up by whatever, and I was just like, so now I just do what I need to do and push my gigs, push my music, and that's it, really. But apart from that, what else don't I like?
Brussels. Brussels sprouts.
No, I love Brussels sprouts, actually, and
Celery.
I don't mind celery. It's a bit boring.
It's got to be a vegetable you don't
I
like.
love a stick of celery.
Do you?
A bit of salt, a bit of
It's
cheese.
just stringy water.
Oh, it's lovely.
Vegetables that I don't like.
We never thought we'd get to this with Andy Farley. Thanks for tuning. If you've just tuned in now, it's what vegetables does Andy Farley like?
I don't think I don't think there's any vegetables I don't dislike. Artichokes, I'll eat them. I'm not a huge fan of them. Maybe
I'll make a note of that for you.
they can be a bit woody.
No artichokes for Andy Farley. We've got a big buffet afterwards.
Take them out of the
Forget
green
the
room.
artichokes.
Pull them out the sandwiches.
But back to a serious question, because Andy has got this. If you've watched the podcast before, you'll know what's coming. But Andy's got a very good question.
Okay.
So you have taken a journey through music and clubbing and DJing and production, but we're going to draw a line now. So of all the gigs you've ever played,
Yeah.
this is your final gig.
Okay.
So you've got to choose one club. You may have never played it, or you have played it. So your final place while you process that, and then there's 3 records from your box you can play. You're going to open with one, the middle of your set, and you're going to play your final record. So I would like to know.
Okay.
First,
So
please.
can it be a club that used to be, or is it a club that's still?
Yeah, totally.
So I will probably say Turnmills.
Yep.
Would the night be trade?
It could be. No. Opening track. I'd probably plump for Passion by Gatacor.
Oh, one of our favourites.
It's got a nice little floaty bit at the start. What was the next bit?
So the second track
Second
is
track.
You're right in the middle of it.
Peak time.
Peak
Your
time.
peak track.
They're going Andy.
Well, do you know what I'd love to play, actually, but it probably wouldn't work. Peak time would be the full 15-minute version of I Feel Loved by Donna Summer, the Patrick Cowley remix. But obviously,
You can. It's up to you.
You can
well,
play it.
yeah, but then if we were going to talk about like staying on the hard path, probably Schoenberg by Marmion,
Yeah.
because that's covered so many different eras of my DJing. Like, it was a massive tune in Tintins, it was a big trade tune. There were some remixes out which I used to play at Sunday Central, and I can still play it today and it still sounds fresh. So that would probably
It
be
is.
the peak time one.
And then it's your last track ever. You're going to close it.
So, is this like I'm never going to DJ again?
It's your final track.
It's your final track.
Final
You just
track.
want to bring one more tune, Andy. The lights come on,
Headphones
then they're
gonna
going to
be
take them
up.
off again, and you've got
You're
to
not
bang
about to die or anything, but
No.
you're going to have it.
Well, I have thought about this actually because I obviously think, oh, what would I play when I retire? And I'd quite like to play something poignant, like Together in Electric Dreams, because the vocals in that, or the words in that, would be quite poignant. However, I do think that maybe it wouldn't
resonate.
it wouldn't resonate with everyone.
People would say, "What was that?" You know,
Yeah, what was that shit? So
he's lost the plot.
maybe that would be the one more extra if people had stayed
Yeah.
behind. But it would probably be. It's a bit of a toss up, really. I did think about this today because I did have a peek at John Hemmings
Yeah,
to see what scope it out. So it would either be System F, Out of the Blue, which is a whopper,
Massive.
Whopper.
or a track that I always play at the end of Pure, which is the Red Jerry mix of Deep by Ariel,
Oh yes, remember that.
which is really, really proper uplifting, and it's got an amazing breakdown, and then there's just a little at the end of it, there's just a little piano which just kind of slows down to nothing. So
It's a great set and a great
That
choice.
is a great set. And by the way, Gat Decor was Tony De Vit's favourite record. of all
it
time.
was.
Yeah, not the version with the vocal that they bootleg they put on. Like you're on about the instrumental version.
Oh yeah, the proper
The
original
proper version, yeah, because
Yeah,
everybody thinks it was Degrees in Motion was thrown over the top and it was made a commercial hit, but originally it was an instrumental, wasn't it?
Bizarrely, I also had an Italian 12-inch of it first before I got the effective one, but which had a little vocal go, "Passion, I'm your passion,"
All right,
which it never came out on the UK release. But
there you go.
a little tidbit for
Well,
you.
that's apart from Together in Electric Dreams, I think you're bringing the house down with those.
Yep.
But that's when we stay behind afterwards
Yeah,
for a
That's
drink.
the after party.
That's the after party. Yeah.
I'm going to have a listen to the lyrics of Together in Electric Dreams,
Yeah.
and if it's poignant.
Well,
Which
that's been
was
lovely, hasn't it?
Yeah, it was Phil Oakey, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That's been lovely.
That is-
And
lovely.
George Emery.
I think we've unpacked Andy Farley.
Yeah, I mean, I always say this to certain guests, and probably a lot of them. I'd love to do a show too, because I think there's more. Because you've got like a lot of experience and a lot of stuff to talk about. But I think that's a nice taster of Andy Farley. 35.
Inside Andy Farley.
It's rude.
No.
Just to clear this up at the end, my DJ partner, fancies Andy Farley. We've always
platonically.
we've always had,
Platonically.
just to end on this, we always had this car journey. We have a little game. If you were gay, who would you like to go with, and who would you like to
Yeah,
live
Andy
with?
Farley.
And he always says Andy Farley, but he doesn't say, not in a sexual way. It's like,
just,
I'd
I
like
think
to
we'd
go
be
for a
great
Toby
together.
Carvery with him.
Well, you have sat on my toilet. Maybe that's what it is.
Yeah, I think just think we'd be great together.
And do you know what? I think you would looking
No,
at
it
him.
was you sat on the toilet, wasn't it? I think.
I was sat on the toilet when I was
yeah,
in through.
yeah.
Maybe
So
clean
yeah,
up.
you two together. Maybe it will happen in another life that
Maybe.
these two will be together. But
Lovely.
I
lovely
think he's
thought.
spoken for, and I think you are as well.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, thank you for this special podcast, Andy, and
No, thank you for having
make it
me.
special for us as well, because we've always wanted you on the show.
Thank you.
And if you want to know more about Andy Farley, forget social media; he's never on it. No, you have got a Facebook page.
I've got Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok for my label, Pure AF Recordings. Just plug that there.
That's a good plug.
Little plug.
And obviously, if you want to see Andy at his best, he'll definitely be at the Weekender because we've booked him. And
Where do
he's-
I go for a ticket for that? Should I need one?
Well, if you wanted to go for a ticket, Andy, there's a couple of places to go, but the place I'd recommend would be tidyweekender.co.uk.
And there's a few rooms left only.
Yeah, and I tell you
And
what,
day tickets.
Day tickets are flying because a lot of people have seen what day they're on, and so day tickets are going. But make sure you
I
get
think
to
I'm on.
what day you on.
Should have put my glasses. I think I'm on Saturday night in the Vicious Circle room. There you go.
Off there, and it is 25 years of Vicious Circle,
25 years
so there's a
Vicious
big
Circle,
party there.
Get
So we'll
there,
see you
get
at the
there.
Weekender in April, and you'll probably see Andy Farley everywhere because he's a very good DJ.
Thank you, Andy.
Thank you.